Andre Onana. This was a suspension that struck one of Europe's elite young goalkeepers during the peak of his power, immediately halting a soaring career. In February 2021, AFC Ajax's star shot-stopper, Andre Onana, was hit with a devastating 12-month ban from all football activity by UEFA after failing an out-of-competition doping test. The trigger for the ban was the detection of furosemide, a banned diuretic and masking agent, in his urine sample. The core of his defence was a catastrophic mistake. He had mistakenly taken a pill prescribed to his wife, believing it to be a common aspirin, while UEFA accepted that the ingestion was unintentional and not aimed at enhancing performance, a crucial distinction. The violation of Article 2.1 of the anti-doping regulations was deemed absolute, underscoring the strict liability policy that governs all players. The financial and legal fallout was immense. Onana and Ajax immediately launched an appeal to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Chies's ruling in June 2021 acknowledged the lack of significant fault and reduced the ban from 12 months to 9 months, a victory that recognised the accidental nature of the violation. Despite the reduction, he lost nearly a full calendar year of his professional life and the value of his prime transfer window, costing Ajax substantial potential fees. At the time of the suspension, Onana was just 24 years old and arguably one of the top 10 goalkeepers in the world. He was the undisputed number one for Ajax, a team consistently competing for the Eredivisie title and deep Champions League runs. The ban cost him the entirety of the 2021 calendar year of elite club competition and nearly ruined his contract status, robbing him of a lucrative peak form transfer. The public reaction was generally sympathetic, with Ajax standing resolutely behind their player. The story became a stark cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked substances. Onana served his ban diligently, returning to the pitch in November 2021. He subsequently secured major transfers to Inter Milan and then Manchester United, proving that even a ban that shook the highest levels of European football could not permanently derail a career defined by talent. Adrien Mutu. This was not merely a suspension. It was the most financially devastating disciplinary action in European football history. In October 2004, Adrien Mutu's high-profile career at Chelsea FC ended abruptly when a targeted drug test returned a positive result for cocaine. His club, Chelsea, showed zero tolerance, terminating his multi-million-pound contract just days later. The immediate sporting consequence was a 7-month worldwide ban imposed by FIFA. Mutu's violation of Rule 8, which covers banned substances, including recreational drugs, was deemed a major breach of his employment contract. The financial consequences dwarfed the ban itself. Chelsea, having paid €22.5 million for his signature a year earlier, immediately sued to recoup their investment. After a 5-year legal war spanning FIFA's dispute resolution chamber and the Court of Arbitration for Sport, Mutu was ordered to pay Chelsea a staggering €17.17 million in compensation. This remains the highest penalty ever levied against a single player in a football legal dispute, a sum that effectively bankrupted the striker. At the age of 25, Mutu was a key signing in the initial transformative phase of the Roman Abramovich era. He was the reigning Romanian Footballer of the Year and considered one of Europe's finest young forwards, a talent many believed could compete for the Ballon d'Or. The ban cost him the entirety of the 2004 to 2005 season, the only Premier League title Chelsea won under Jose Mourinho that term. The scandal was a defining moment for Chelsea's zero-tolerance drug policy. While the ban was served, Mutu immediately resurrected his career in Italy, first with Juventus, then brilliantly at Fiorentina, re-establishing himself as one of Serie A's top players. However, the legal judgment against him was upheld by the Swiss Federal Court and even the European Court of Human Rights, ensuring that the record-breaking financial penalty remains his defining, ruinous legacy, forever linking the striker's brilliant but volatile talent with ultimate personal catastrophe. Paul Pogba. The doping case involving World Cup winner Paul Pogba became one of European football's most high-profile anti-doping sagas, ultimately delivering a profound setback to the career of the French midfielder, but culminating in an eventual return to the pitch in his home country. The incident began on August 20th, 2023, following Juventus's Serie A victory against Udinese. A routine post-match test detected non-endogenous testosterone metabolites in his sample, which were later identified as resulting from dehydroepiandrosterone, a prohibited substance known to raise testosterone levels. Both the initial A sample and the subsequent B sample confirmed the positive result, leading to his provisional suspension in September 2023. He consistently maintained his innocence, claiming he had inadvertently consumed the substance through a nutritional supplement prescribed by a doctor in the United States, and that he had no intention to enhance his performance. However, due to the strict liability nature of anti-doping rules, the burden of proof rested entirely on the athlete to explain the presence of the banned substance. In February 2024, Italy's National Anti-Doping Tribunal accepted the prosecutor's request for the maximum penalty, issuing a 4-year ban. The severe ruling was seen as a potential career ender for the 31-year-old, whose lucrative contract with Juventus was subsequently terminated in late 2024. In October 2024, CAS delivered a decisive ruling, reducing the suspension to 18 months. This reduction acknowledged his lack of intentional wrongdoing. The verdict allowed him to resume his career, and in June 2025, Pogba signed a 2-year deal with French side AS Monaco, marking his first professional club venture in Ligue 1 and completing his long-awaited comeback to football in the Principality. Abel Xavier. The career of flamboyant Portuguese defender Abel Xavier was indelibly marked in 2005 when he became the first active Premier League player to be suspended for using a performance-enhancing drug. The case, which centred on an anabolic steroid, established a clear, non-negotiable precedent for anti-doping regulations within English football. The positive test occurred on September 29th, following Middlesbrough's UEFA Cup match away to Xanthi in Greece. The laboratory analysis confirmed the presence of dianabol, a Schedule III anabolic steroid. This finding immediately elevated the seriousness of the offence, distinguishing Xavier's violation from earlier English bans, which had involved recreational substances. In November 2005, UEFA's control and disciplinary body found Xavier guilty of breaching anti-doping regulations and imposed an initial, substantial 18-month ban from all football activity. The severity of the punishment underscored the zero-tolerance policy against anabolic agents enforced by UEFA and FIFA, signalling a strong deterrent to players across the continent. Xavier, who famously sported distinctive hairstyles, vehemently denied knowingly taking a banned substance, claiming he had inadvertently consumed it through a contaminated supplement purchased in the United States to combat a virus. Xavier immediately appealed the ruling, taking his case through the established judicial pathways. While the governing body's conviction stood, the lengthy ban was eventually reduced by an independent arbitration panel to 12 months in July 2006. This reduction acknowledged that the player had not acted with a clear intention to enhance performance, but it upheld the principle of strict liability. The player is ultimately responsible for any prohibited substance found in their body. Despite the slight reduction, the year-long suspension meant Xavier missed the majority of the 2005 to 2006 season, ensuring his case remains one of the most defining examples of doping enforcement in the history of the English top flight. Diego Maradona. Diego Maradona remains one of football's most mythic figures, an artistic genius whose extraordinary talent was equally matched by his capacity for self-destruction. His international and club career, particularly throughout the 1990s, was consistently interrupted by severe disciplinary action stemming from chronic substance abuse and a known struggle with addiction. These turbulent episodes led to multiple high-profile bans that ultimately defined the tragic trajectory of his professional life. Before these controversies, Maradona achieved unparalleled success, most notably leading Argentina to the 1986 World Cup triumph, and single-handedly securing 2 Serie A titles for SSC Napoli, transforming him into a cultural and sporting icon. However, the immense pressures of fame and personal issues led to his first major professional crisis in Europe. The beginning of his public downfall occurred in 1991 while he was playing for SSC Napoli. Following a league match, Maradona tested positive for cocaine, a substance he later admitted to struggling with for decades. The Italian Football Federation imposed a substantial 15-month ban. This suspension forced him out of European football and exposed the severe addiction issues that shadowed him, marking the interruption of his career at its peak. The most shocking and globally publicised incident came during the 1994 FIFA World Cup in the United States. After scoring a brilliant goal against Greece, Maradona celebrated with a famous, frenzied scream into the camera. His tournament and his international career ended abruptly after the second match against Nigeria. A subsequent drug test revealed the presence of 5 different variants of ephedrine, a banned stimulant. FIFA swiftly expelled him from the tournament and imposed a second 15-month suspension. These 2 major bans, one for cocaine, the other for stimulants, bracketed a period of immense personal struggle, ensuring his glittering career ended in controversy rather than triumph. Rio Ferdinand. The case of Rio Ferdinand became a landmark controversy in English football, not for a positive drug test, but for the principle of strict liability surrounding compliance. In September 2003, the Manchester United and England defender failed to attend a mandatory random drugs test at the club's Carrington training ground, having simply left after training to go shopping. Ferdinand's defence was that he had genuinely forgotten the requirement and passed a test 36 hours later, proving he had no prohibited substance in his system. In December 2003, the FA delivered a savage and unprecedented punishment, banning the then England captain for 8 months, effective from January 2004, and imposing a £50,000 fine. The FA's stance was rooted in a determination to uphold the integrity of the testing process, making a high-profile example of the most expensive defender in British history. The consequences were monumental. The ban ruled the 25-year-old Rio Ferdinand out for the entire second half of the 2003 season, forcing him to miss Manchester United's FA Cup triumph and, critically, England's entire Euro 2004 campaign. The decision was met with fury from Manchester United and nearly led to a strike by the England squad, who questioned the severity of the sanction compared to other historical cases. Manchester United immediately appealed, but ultimately dropped the challenge, allowing the suspension to stand.
We're extremely disappointed by the result in this case.
Ferdinand, the player, was forced to spend 8 months away from football during the peak of his career. Despite the setback, he returned in September 2004 and went on to cement his legacy, winning multiple Premier League titles and the Champions League, though the experience remains a defining, difficult period in his career. Ibrahima Niane. The Senegalese striker was once regarded as one of League One's most promising talents, particularly during his explosive start at FC Metz. However, his professional momentum was shattered in 2024 by a dramatic, career-altering suspension following a doping violation. The ban, imposed by the French anti-doping agency, was levied after Niane tested positive for ecstasy, a substance prohibited in professional sport, casting a deep shadow over his mid-career. The tragedy of this ban lies in the immense potential Niane demonstrated earlier in his career. Most notably, the 2020 to 2021 season saw him burst onto the scene for Metz, scoring 6 goals in 6 league matches and earning the League One Player of the Month award in September. That remarkable form put him on the cusp of a call-up to the Senegalese national team. However, a severe anterior cruciate ligament injury derailed that progress. The subsequent 2-year ban compounds this misfortune, prohibiting the 26-year-old from all professional football activities and extinguishing any hope of an immediate return to form. During the investigation, reports indicated that Niane was unable to provide a satisfactory explanation for the presence of the illegal substances in his system, which contributed to the imposition of the full 2-year penalty. The incident occurred while he was on loan at Angers from Metz. With his contract set to expire around the time the ban was announced, the suspension effectively forced his professional release from the club. Niane is now left with an enforced 2-year hiatus, after which he will face the challenge of finding a new club and readapting to the high physical demands of the professional game at age 28. The case serves as a stark reminder of the personal risks players take when consuming unapproved or recreational substances. Edgar Davids. The formidable Dutch midfielder Edgar Davids became one of the most high-profile figures implicated in the infamous Nandrolone era that cast a shadow over Italian football at the turn of the millennium. The saga, which highlighted systemic doping concerns in Serie A, began in March 2001 when the Juventus powerhouse tested non-negative for the banned anabolic steroid, Nandrolone, following a league match against Udinese. The confirmation of the B sample sealed his fate. Davids, renowned for his tenacity, distinctive goggles, and boundless energy in midfield, vehemently denied any wrongdoing, stating he had never knowingly taken an illegal substance. However, his positive result was not an isolated incident. Rather, it formed a pattern with positive tests from other prominent players. His case followed a string of Nandrolone positives, including Lazio's Fernando Couto and, subsequently, Dutch compatriot Jaap Stam and Brescia's Pep Guardiola. This widespread incidence of the same substance led to the period being dubbed the Nandrolone era, fueling a public health debate and widespread suspicion regarding doping practices in the Italian top flight. In August 2001, the Italian League Disciplinary Commission imposed an initial 5-month ban. Davids and Juventus immediately appealed, challenging the finding. While the penalty was slightly reduced to 4 months by the Italian Football Federation on appeal, the suspension was upheld. The governing bodies were intent on sending a strong message of deterrence, even as players, many of whom pointed to contaminated supplements as the source, protested their innocence. The suspension forced Davids to miss the start of the 2001-2 season and crucial international fixtures for the Netherlands. He eventually returned to the pitch in October 2001, re-establishing himself in the Juventus midfield and later moving to Barcelona. While his career continued at the elite level for years, the 4-month ban remains the most controversial period, serving as a powerful symbol of the regulatory struggle to ensure clean competition within Calcio. Mykhailo Mudryk. The firestorm dropped like an anvil on Stamford Bridge in December 2024. Ukrainian winger Mykhailo Mudryk, the £88.5 million superstar for Chelsea FC, was officially provisionally suspended from all football competition. The immediate consequence was devastating. A promising but turbulent young career suddenly exiled from the pitch, leaving the club and the player scrambling for answers amidst the shockwaves. The reason was a positive A sample, which tested for the prohibited substance meldonium, a drug infamously linked to previous high-profile bans. The Football Association formally charged him with anti-doping rule violations, citing regulations 3 and 4, the core principles of the league's anti-doping policy. Though Mudryk immediately declared he had never knowingly used any banned substances, the league's citation of strict liability, that a player is solely responsible for what is found in their system, ensured the ban stood pending further investigation. The financial stakes were catastrophic. Chelsea's massive outlay, consisting of €70 million up front and €30 million in difficult-to-achieve add-ons, was instantly jeopardised. With the threat of a full 4-year ban looming, there were whispers the club might pursue contract termination. His legal team immediately geared up for the most brutal battle of his life, aiming to prove mitigating circumstances and avoid career-ending exile. At the time of the provisional suspension, Mudryk was just 23 years old, at the absolute fringe of his athletic prime. His 2024/25 season had shown flashes of the brilliance Chelsea paid for, particularly in European competitions. But the ban brought his development to a screeching halt. The timing could not have been crueler, threatening to steal 4 crucial years from a career that had only just begun its chapter in the Premier League. The public reaction was split between disbelief and fury over the monumental waste of talent and treasure. His former club, Shakhtar Donetsk, stood firmly behind him, spewing nonsense at the media and calling him 100% innocent. But innocence is secondary when strict anti-doping rules are invoked. For now, Mudryk remains locked out of action, his story a thunderous modern tragedy of how easily a generational talent can be undone by a single prohibited substance. Dominique Taboga. The 2013 arrest and subsequent prosecution of Austrian footballer Dominique Taboga uncovered a wide-ranging match-fixing scandal that rocked the Austrian Bundesliga. The case was unusual because it began with Taboga, a perpetrator, coming forward to the police as a victim of extortion, leading to the dramatic unmasking of his former teammate, Sanel Kuljic. Dominique Taboga, a defender for SV Grudig at the time, initially approached authorities in November 2013, claiming he was being blackmailed by former Austrian international striker Sanel Kuljic. Taboga alleged that Kuljic had forced him to pay nearly €30,000 and had threatened him and his family with violence after Taboga refused to actively participate in fixing matches for Grudig. Taboga cooperated with the police, which ultimately led to Kulic's arrest in a shopping centre car park near Salzburg, while the former international was attempting to collect a further €3,000 from Taboga. For a brief period, Taboga was viewed as a hero for standing up to the match-fixing underworld. However, the story took a sharp turn following further investigation. Shortly after Kulic's arrest, the focus of the investigation shifted back to Taboga himself. He confessed that his claims of being a mere victim were incomplete. Taboga admitted to having previously attempted to persuade 4 teammates at SV Grudig to manipulate the outcomes of matches during the 2012 to 2013 season. While the club maintained the attempts were unsuccessful and no matches involving Grudig were fixed, Taboga had actively engaged in the criminal enterprise. He, Kuljic, and other individuals were subsequently charged with forming a criminal organisation and attempting to manipulate 18 National League games in Austria's first and second divisions between 2004 and 2013 for betting profits. In October 2014, an Austrian criminal court delivered the sentences. Dominique Taboga was sentenced to a 3-year prison term for his role in the betting scam, while Sanel Kuljic received a harsher 5-year prison term for his central role in the scheme. The Austrian Football Federation handed Dominique Taboga a life ban from playing, refereeing, or working as a club official or player agent in Austrian football. While his initial cooperation helped uncover the broader scandal, his admission of being an active participant in match-fixing attempts sealed his fate, transforming him from a perceived victim of extortion into a key figure in one of Austrian football's biggest corruption cases. Mario Vuskovic. The doping case of Croatian defender Mario Vušković represents a rare and legally complex anti-doping violation in football, centering on the detection of the banned blood booster erythropoietin. The issue began when Vušković, then playing for Hamburger SV in Germany's second Bundesliga, tested positive for recombinant EPO in an out-of-competition control taken in September 2022. The substance, which illegally enhances red blood cell production to boost endurance, is uncommon in football and highly difficult to detect. Vušković was provisionally suspended in November 2022. The case progressed through a challenging multi-stage legal process. The initial ruling in March 2023 by the German Football Association Sports Tribunal found Vušković guilty of an anti-doping rule violation, imposing a 2-year ban. This verdict was less than the standard 4-year suspension, reflecting the complexity and debate surrounding the analytical evidence for EPO. Both sides challenged the decision. Vušković and HSV immediately appealed to clear his name, maintaining his innocence and citing irregularities in the testing procedure. Conversely, the National Anti-Doping Agency of Germany and the World Anti-Doping Agency filed their own appeals, seeking to increase the punishment to the standard 4-year ban. The matter was ultimately settled by the Court of Arbitration for Sport in August 2024. The CAS panel dismissed Vuškovic's appeal, upheld the finding of an anti-doping rule violation, and, critically, sided with Nada and Wada. The CAS ruling increased his sanction to the full 4-year period of ineligibility, backdated to November 2022. The judgment stated that Vušković failed to submit any mitigating factors that could have justified a reduction. The decision effectively bans the centre-back until November 2026, halting his career during his prime playing years. Jonathan Bachini. The career of former Juventus and Italy winger Jonathan Bachini was decisively cut short by a series of anti-doping violations, culminating in a lifetime ban from Italian football. Unlike match-fixing sanctions, Bachini's penalties were due to his repeated positive tests for a recreational substance, cocaine. His case is often cited as a cautionary tale, illustrating how multiple offences drastically increase the severity of regulatory punishment, moving from temporary suspension to permanent expulsion from the professional sport. Bachini's first violation occurred in September 2004 while he was playing for Brescia Calcio. Following a Serie A match, a routine drug test detected traces of cocaine in his system. After a thorough investigation, the Italian Football Federation Disciplinary Commission issued its ruling, and in November 2004, Bachini was suspended for 9 months. This ban temporarily halted his career, but importantly left the door open for his eventual return to the field, serving as a warning for future compliance. However, the initial suspension failed to deter a second, fatal offence that permanently derailed his professional life. Shortly after returning to action and being acquired by AC Siena in 2005, Bachini tested positive for cocaine yet again. The decisive urine sample was collected after a Serie A match against SS Lazio on the 4th of December 2005. Having already served a significant suspension for the exact same drug less than 2 years prior, this second positive test was viewed as an intolerable repetition of misconduct, recognising the double offence as a fundamental betrayal of anti-doping regulations and a failure to rehabilitate. The FIGC's disciplinary commission acted swiftly and severely. In January 2006, the commission handed down the ultimate sanction, banning Jonathan Bachini for life from playing or participating in any official capacity in Italian football, thus definitively terminating the career of the former international player at the age of 30.